Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 to 28, the faith of the Canaanite woman. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession." Jesus did not answer a word, so his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." Her daughter was healed from that very hour. I'm sure that you're quite probably familiar with the C.S. Lewis book, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, published for many years, adapted many times in one form or another. So here's an excerpt from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and it's quite a famous quote which you may have heard before. But in this scene, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver are describing Aslan the lion to Susan and Lucy. "Who is Aslan?" asked Susan. "Aslan?" said Mr. Beaver. "Why, don't you know? He's the king. He's the lord of the whole wood, but not often here, you understand. Never in my time or my father's time. But the word has reached us that he has come back. He is in Narnia at this moment. He'll settle the White Queen all right. 'Tis he, not you, that will save Mr. Tumnus. He'll put all to rights, as it says in an old rhyme in these parts. Wrong will be right when Aslan comes in sight. At the sound of his roar, sorrows will be no more. When he bares his teeth, winter meets its death, and when he shakes his mane, we shall have spring again. You'll understand when you see him." "But shall we see him?" asked Susan. "Why, daughter of Eve, that's what I brought you here for. I am to lead you where you shall meet him," said Mr. Beaver. Is he a man?" asked Lucy. "Aslan a man?" Mr. Beaver said sternly. "Certainly not. I tell you, he is the king of the wood, and the son of the great emperor beyond the sea. Don't you know who is the king of the beasts? Aslan is a lion, the great lion." "Oh," said Susan, "I thought he was a man. Is he quite safe? I shall feel rather nervous about meeting a lion." "That you will, dearie, no mistake," said Mrs. Beaver. "If there's anyone who can appear before Aslan without her knees knocking, they're either brave than the most or just silly." "Then he isn't safe," said Lucy. "Safe?" said Mr. Beaver. "Don't you hear what Mrs. Beaver tells you? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. He's the king, I tell you." "I'm longing to see him," said Peter, "even if I do feel frightened when it comes to that point." So, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver are telling the children about Aslan the lion, and as you're probably aware and very familiar, the fictional Aslan is often identified with the historical Jesus in some elements in terms of sovereign power and a sacrificial death and things like that, and we understand we can draw some thoughts and lessons from that. But what about this famous phrase, really? It's safe. Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. And I read that excerpt because I wanted to ask, what about Jesus? Is he safe? Is Jesus safe? Well, let's think again about the passage from Matthew. Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly from demon possession." Jesus did not answer a word, So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The one came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." Her daughter was healed from that very hour. Well, Tyre and Sidon, region of modern-day Lebanon, just north of Galilee, and Jesus' disciples had gone there for a break. So it's not kind of normal Jewish inhabited area, but they'd gone there for a break. They weren't looking for attention. In fact, they were actively avoiding it. But still, word about Jesus had travelled. It had travelled across what really was a political and a religious border. A Canaanite woman had heard and came to beg Jesus for help. Now, it's the only time the word Canaanite is actually used in the New Testament, and it marks her out for an outsider with that association with the Canaanites and their enmity with the Israelites in the Old Testament. So it's recalling that sense of opposition and being an outsider. The woman wanted help for a demon-possessed daughter, and she wouldn't take no for an answer. So how does Jesus respond? What does Jesus do? He ignores her. Jesus, we read, did not answer a word. He ignored her. How do the disciples respond? Well, they try and get rid of her. "Send her away. She keeps crying out after us." It's not dissimilar, is it, to the way they tried to get rid of the little children that came to Jesus, that Jesus wanted to welcome. The disciples wanted to get rid of her. Jesus ignored her. And Jesus seems to then go on and pick up this unfriendly attitude. "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel," he says. So in other words, on your right, woman, you're not from the right group. Well, we don't know whether Jesus was saying this to his disciples or to the woman, and we also don't know what tone of voice he's using, although we perhaps shouldn't try and explain too much in the Bible away by imagining the tone of voice of the speaker. Whatever the truth, though, the woman perseveres. The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said, and the word that's translated there for kneeling before him is a word that kind of is also associated with worship and with kind of obeisance. So the woman persevered. She came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. So at last, finally, having stalled for a bit, Jesus performs the miracle we always expected he would. No, he doesn't, actually. He insults the woman instead. He replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." Well, in our culture, we like dogs, as long as we're not getting tripped up by their super long leads in the market square. But we generally mostly like dogs, don't we? But this respect and warmth isn't the same in the Middle East, where dogs are seen in quite a different way. Calling someone a dog is an insult, and it was an insult then. So again, we don't know whether Jesus was talking to the disciples or to the woman when he was saying some of these things. And of course, we don't know his tone of voice. He could have had a kind of a slightly playful or ironic tone of voice, but we don't know. We can't assume that. Even so, it's a harsh comment. Neither disciples nor Jesus looked to have much time for this woman. Inevitably, after such a frosty reception, the woman gives up. Yes? She knows she's not wanted, so off she goes. Yes? Actually, no. Instead of that, the woman comes up with a clever response, leaving even Jesus impressed. "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted," and her daughter was healed from that very hour. Well, we could forgive the woman for giving up. Most would, but a quick-witted response saves her daughter. And Jesus praises her for having great faith. It's like the persistent widow in Luke chapter 18, the one who seeking justice from the unjust judge, and the widow doesn't give up pestering the judge until the judge relents and gives her justice, a bit like that. And here in Tyre and Sidon, a mother's audacity and perseverance lead to a miracle. And there's only two places in the New Testament where we find Jesus saying to someone, "You've got great faith." This is one of them, of course. The other one? Well, the other one is the Roman centurion whose servants healed by Jesus from a distance. It's recorded in Luke chapter 7, Matthew chapter 8, where Jesus finds the centurion saying, "Say the word, and my servant will be healed." And Jesus commends the centurion as having great faith. So only two occasions where this is said of someone. Both the woman in Tyre and the centurion in Capernaum believed Jesus could heal from a distance with a word. And what do you know? Here we have two foreigners, two outsiders, two people who weren't on the right list, not in the right group, but two people for whom Jesus performed an outstanding miracle. Well, why would he go and do that, I wonder? And it also makes me think, are we too quick to exclude people? Are we too quick to decide who is in and who is out, who deserves help and who doesn't? Do some deserve God's mercy and others don't? Does God's grace extend to one and not to another? Did Jesus die to save a few, or did he die to save us all? Do we even need to answer those questions? Well, back to Mr. and Mrs. Beaver and Aslan the lion. Safe? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe, but he's good. Is Jesus safe? No, he's not safe. There are some challenging things, aren't there, with this account. He's not safe, but he's good. We can't take it for granted, but he's good. And that is good, because when we take people for granted, we pay less attention to what they say, don't we? I remember hearing a comment once that said we shouldn't Disneyfy Jesus, meaning, I think, that we shouldn't assume that he'll always be one of the ever-smiling, good-looking, generous-minded and predictable characters we think we encounter in Disney films, although I think when you look closer you find that some of those characters are a bit more complex and occasionally flawed than we realise. But so we shouldn't Disneyfy Jesus and assume that he couldn't be capable of a sharp response. But Jesus truly is a bit unsafe, and he's a bit unpredictable. A bit unsafe, a bit unpredictable. Yes, but always good, and always full of love, and that's, of course, why he came to this world, to earth, to show God's love to us by dying for us on the cross and giving his life for our forgiveness. And just one final thing. What do you think Jesus did next? Where did he go? So he's been to Tyre and Sidon and he's eventually performed this outstanding miracle, but where did he go next? Well, actually, he went down by the Sea of Galilee and fed another crowd, 4,000 this time. Jews? No, they weren't actually. They were non-Jews this time, because that area he went to was not a Jewish area. So I wonder if we should make any connections with that. Is Jesus, through these incidents, these accounts, trying to help us think a bit more carefully, a bit more calmly and clearly about those who we sometimes exclude, when perhaps we should consider God's grace at work even for them as it is for us? So let's ponder those thoughts together, and as I pray. Lord Jesus, thank you that you are always good, always loving. Thank you that even when we find our circumstances a bit unpredictable, or it feels a bit unsafe being one of your followers, help us nevertheless to trust you, to walk in your ways, to do those things which are pleasing to you, and always to be confident that you will never leave us, you'll never fail us, you'll never let us down, you never walk off and leave us. And so we thank you as we ask our prayer in your name. Amen. Take care. God bless you.